Welcome to Living Well in Montana. This is a program of LIFT, which is Living Independently for Today and Tomorrow. It's an organization that helps people with disabilities in 18 counties in central and eastern Montana. This is a little unusual today because, as you can tell, we are on a Zoom session rather than in the studio. But bear with us, we have a good story to tell. My co-host Kathleen and Robert and Cheryl are with us today, and we'll get to meet each one of these people as our session goes on. Maybe let's start. Kathleen, do you want to introduce our guest today?
I do. This is Robert Hamilton, who has a really interesting and uplifting story. But before we get into that, Robert, we always like to kind of get a feel for the background of the guests that we're interviewing. So talk a little bit about, just a little bit, where did you grow up?
Let's see. Good morning, everyone. I grew up in a small little one-horse town of Ingomar, Montana. And from there, I went to high school in Melstone, and I jumped into the oil field and led me around the world.
That's really amazing. You're a Montana-born boy then.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't Ingomar the home of the Jersey Lily?
Yes, sir, it is. The famous word.
Well, you started out with a pretty good career. If you're working in the oil fields, is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
So when did things start to go south a little bit? By that, I'm indicating that you ended up on the street or homeless.
Yes, I did. Things started going sour when I realized that my ex-wife now was praying to Allah, and I decided to pull the plug on that and ran. I went into the carnival and bounced around down south, and I met a shrimp.
You were a carny guy?
Yes, that's a very tough job.
That's what I've heard.
So then I jumped onto a shrimp boat and met a shrimp boat captain by the name of Billy Stewart. And he talked me into coming in back to Montana and telling my story. And I was wanted by the police, and I was on the run for 4 years. And I did come back and turn myself in and did my time, told my story.
Huh. And were you homeless at that point?
Yes, I was. There was some of the things it really got crazy with that woman, and the federal agents were involved, and she's sorry. I'm not tracking right. Yes, it was very interesting.
Right. Well, and Robert, I don't think it's necessary for us to go into any of those details. I think the story here is really about, I guess, when you got out of jail, and where did you start? Where did you turn to figure out how to move on with your life?
Well, let's see. I knew I had to keep working because that's about a real positive thing that people need to do. And I knew I needed to do that. So I hitchhiked with the preacher. I started talking to the preacher in jail, and he helped me get back to Billings. And that's when I went. I couldn't buy a job. I mean, I found a job at the Dollar Tree, and I was still talking to the marshals and helping them out. And I got the job at the Dollar Tree, and I hung on to that job for 5 years. And it was really going good until it seems like I get mixed up with some undesirable people, and I get led down a pathway I don't want to go. So I got to pull it out again, if you know what I mean. yeah, it's just, and I've kind of lost my tracking. Yeah, I'm sorry, sir.
Robert, you're not telling us a story that a lot of people probably don't share that same story.
Okay.
It's very hard working at a probably pretty low wage job at the Dollar Tree. I am amazed that you stuck there for 5 years. I mean, that certainly shows some fortitude.
Yeah, they really liked the way I worked, and I did my best.
It
And
sounds to
from
me like
there-
you do your best, just from what you've said so far.
yes. And God has a lot to do with it. And believing in Jesus. But sometimes I just think, would Jesus do that? He probably would. Yeah, let's just try to keep positive and yeah, it can be
Where
really
did you
tough.
sleep? Where did you live during that time with the dollar store?
I was in the mission, and that was very degrading for me because my moral standards were higher than a lot of what I pictured it as being myself, and I never panhandled, but I did pick up cigarette butts. But I knew I had to get back to work, and once I got that job, I got a small apartment, and that was the best thing that happened to me.
With us today is Cheryl Riga, and she is the caseworker at Lyft. And I would like to ask Cheryl, Robert's story is probably not that much different with many people that have some kind of disability or have had stumbling blocks along the way. Is that the case, Cheryl?
Morning, Corby. Yes, actually, Robert's story is unique based on Robert, but there are a lot of people out there who go down roads that they know they don't belong and their disabilities are invisible, and it's how they cope, it's how they deal. And then when they get to that point where they need help, that's usually when they find Lyft or they ask for help. But no, Robert's story is incredible for how far he came, how he's overcome, and where he is today. But it's not uncommon. Robert is definitely not alone out there on this side of the coin for disabilities. But one thing Robert has done is he's put one foot in front of the other, and he's been active in every part of his process of recovery and establishing to become inclusive in the community.
Robert, can you give me an example of a day in the life of Robert when you actually were not in an apartment, but actually homeless?
Well, my day would start, I'd get up in the mission, and one of the things that made me angry is there's always bumming cigarettes. First thing, hey, you got a cigarette. So anyway, I had to deal with the bums bumming the cigarettes, and usually I'd go to Starbucks and get a coffee, and I managed to hang on to my laptop, and I would network there with social media and trying to get jobs and trying to stay in touch with everybody, so they knew that I was okay. And then from there, I'd wander up with, I would follow the homeless people and find out where they were eating and where they were all sleeping and stuff like that, and mingle in and just fit in, try not to get angry at all the stupid stuff. And one of the things I always kept in mind is I would never drink off the bottle with them in the alley. That's just one of my deals. Too many germs, if we want to go kiss, it's just go kiss. We're drinking off that bottle. So anyway, I'd go eat with all them guys and hang out, and then either go back to Starbucks or head back to the mission. And we had chores that we'd have to do to stay. And just try to fit in the best I could and stay out of trouble.
Did you feel
When,
safe?
when you were working, excuse me, Kathleen,
I was
when
just-
you were
ahead.
working at the dollar store, were you taking a city bus to get there, or how did you get to work?
Well, actually, there was this guy by the name of Ted that was helping me, and he would, out of the gracious goodness of his heart, he would come to my apartment, and I'd make sure I was ready, and he'd give me a ride to work, and then he would come get me and take me back home. This guy is a total angel. I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, actually, his daughter is the one that hired me at the Dollar Tree, and you know, I guess it was in his better interest to make sure I got to work. But yes, on occasions I would ride the bus or I would walk.
What about in the wintertime? Was it tougher to, obviously it's going to be cold, but was that more difficult and maybe more despairing?
Yes, it was. But I just always remembered that I was born in the backseat of a '56 Chevy in January on the 28th, naked. So, I just remember that, and I can do this.
Well, clearly, something kept you going. You have clearly, you refused to go any deeper. You were going to climb out of this. And I
Yes.
don't know what caused you to give so much grit, but I'm guessing that you weren't going to give up until you had a better life.
Yep, yeah, you're right. And she can never give up. She's got to keep going.
Robert, I work with Family Promise in Billings, and that is an organization for homeless families. And I know a woman that was a part of Family Promise that has been working at the dollar store, I think now for 3 years. But
Wow.
I remember when she was homeless, literally staying in church basements and getting to work and trying to figure out day by day, how do you get by and still
Yeah.
get to work and take care of the kids? So
Yes, it's very confusing sometimes, and you got to think about it and make sure you make the right decisions, or you can run out of your resources that you have, and it can be very tricky. Yes.
Cheryl, I know that Robert is back now in Ingomar. Were you helpful in getting him a job, or let's talk a little bit about how you went about getting back to Ingomar and finding a job?
Well, Gorby, I was not a part of his journey at that point. At that point, that's when Robert met McKenna and Jen up in Glendive.
Oh, those girls
I
are
know.
fabulous.
And the thing was, Robert had lost his Social Security. He had no home. He was living out of the back of his truck. He was barely making it. He fed his dog before feeding himself. And he came to Lyft asking for help. And he was so humbled when he met them and when he met me when I walked in to get a media release and introduce myself and spend some time. And what ended up happening was they filed for Social Security, and he's still waiting for that appeal to happen. And he stayed clean. He decided that he needed more, and he applied at a local grocery store out there in Forsyth, and he got a job. And what's happened since you got that job, Robert?
Things have really turned around. I was in a pit of despair. I didn't know what to do. And I kept just coming back. And one of the ladies told me, just go back, just clean up and go back and don't give up. And so I just kept coming back and say, hey, man, I need a job. And it paid off.
And
I think-
Robert, how did you know about Lyft?
I don't remember how I got in contact with these ladies.
Hmm.
I think it was by word of mouth. Where I don't remember, but I remember making the meetings, and it was one of the things that that lady said that really just spurred me on. Don't give up, get back in there. So I did. And
You know,
I
part
appreciate-
of the reason we're doing this program is for people that might find themselves in a similar situation. So that
Okay.
we're trying to let people know. I mean, you think of all the people in eastern Montana and in small towns that might fall on hard times or have a disability that prevents them from regular jobs. Really, that's what our program is about, is try to let people know how Lyft can help them.
I see. You guys have helped me a lot. Thank you.
Do you still work with Lyft? Do you still use their services?
Yes, we're working on Social Security still, and there's some other things that I was going to talk to the ladies about. There's like a land war going on in Ingomar over some stuff, and yes, I'm going to probably be needing some more help.
And that's right. You lost your Social Security for a while, didn't you?
Yes, I still haven't gotten it back, and that
That's one of
changed
the
things a
things
lot.
Lyft does. Lyft helps you navigate those sticky things, and they persevere. They keep going until it's made right. So hopefully they're still working with you on that little
They are.
box. Talk about your living quarters now. You did. I thought it was a very creative way, but you have a home now.
Camper?
Yes, I got a 30-foot camper. My mom decided to surprise me with $1,000 check, and I was on the brink of destruction. I didn't know what to do, and so she sent me that money, and so I went and got this 30-foot camper, and it's working out good. Some things that happened to my truck that's kind of pinned me down in Forsyth, but through the grace of God and people helping me, I think I found another pickup that's going to work just fine, and I might be able to move the camper back to Forsyth, and it's just ongoing.
It's home is where the heart is, and I thought that was a really great solution. I think in Billings alone, the 2020 census indicated that there were close to 400 homeless people on any given night in Billings. And I wonder if you could, what can people do besides, these Lyft, of course, but how can people help Montanans living with disabilities who are homeless? If you're extraordinary, because you're one of those I'll never give up, but are there other ways we can reach out to homeless people, particularly those living with disabilities?
That's a good question. That's there's so many, they're so depressed, and there's so many addictions that it would be hard to just hand out money to some of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, giving them food and shelter is a good start. And that's a good question.
What advice would you give to someone if they maybe came to you, Robert, and said, I've watched what you've done. How can I do that same thing? How can I be successful?
I would just say, set some goals and make up your mind you're not going to give up on them, and never give up, and try to stay positive. And keep it simple. You got to keep it simple.
I agree that the never give up is a good motto for everybody. If you're joining us right now, just now, our guest today is Robert Hamilton, who's had an extraordinary story that started kind of homeless to now a working person living in Ingomar with a home. And we are talking about Lyft responsibilities and services that helped Robert become a homeowner.
Cheryl, I know one of the things that you come across all the time are when people are sort of in despair, they don't know how to even start. So the step by step, what would your suggestion be to how people can approach Lyft just with small things?
Don't be afraid to call. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and say, I need help. Because, you know, people are far more important here still with us than being out there suffering alone and having possible consequences of not making it through. But setting goals, working with an independent living specialist like what I do and 5 others here do, working with us, setting goals. We offer you resources. We can give you encouragement. We help teach life skills. We help teach coping skills. And the most important thing is all of us here at Lyft are disabled one way or another. All of us independent living specialists, our peers, we all live with a disability, whether it's visible or invisible. And we're proof too that we can be all inclusive and be productive. And that's what's so amazing about Robert's story, because he took what Lyft has to offer and he took charge. You know, it was his show. We were just here in one way or the other to help conduct the direction on which he needed to go.
Cheryl, do you think that there are more ways Lyft can reach out to the homeless people living in Billings? I mean, are there other ways? They may not have a phone, they may not have a laptop.
It's word of mouth. And the other thing is with COVID happening and Delta rising, it's hard for us to get out there, but we all go out there. We all talk to people, you know, and the thing is be kind. Kindness is free. And if you see somebody, and if anybody's even seen our programs that we produce and put out there for the public to see what we do, share our name. You know, how we can help in outreach is talk to people, you know, let people know, hey, I know of this place, or there is help, don't give up. So being encouraging and reaching them that way, you know, a lot of people forget in today's day, you know, a kind word can save somebody's life. And you know what, again, Robert's a prime example. He was told, don't give up. And he took that and he ran with it.
Again, the name of our program is Living Well in Montana. And the program is sponsored by Lyft, Living Independently for Today and Tomorrow. And that really is the goal, is to help people find a place, find a job. People with disabilities may need additional help in terms of finding a home and getting a job. But the goal is for them to live independently.
And Robert, you must feel very independent at this point in your life. Is that right?
I do, yes.
Do you do? Oh, go ahead.
Jump in here. Robert, you started a job. Because of that hard work, what did your job give you back in return before your review even happened? They gave you more what?
Courage.
And hours?
Yes, oh yes, I got I got
Even
8 more hours.
I like courage.
But hours pay better.
Yes, it does.
It's a prime example of hard work and perseverance. It's not hard to follow through when you have the right tools, but it can be hard to get started when you have a disability and you feel like nobody understands.
Yeah.
Is there
I
anything
would
else?
also,
Oh, go ahead, Corby.
I would also say, if there are employers, I know all of Montana, all the employers are short of workers. And I think finding, calling Lyft and saying, we need somebody to help. Certainly, Robert's a great example. 5 years at the dollar store, and now he has another job, is that oftentimes people that have disabilities are very dependent because it's very important to their life that they have that job.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And a
Very
lot of
true.
times employers don't realize that sometimes the accommodations that are asked for are so easy to put into place. Robert might need an extra 10-minute break. Robert might need, or anybody might need, up, I'm a little overloaded, I've got to go take a walk. Just little things like that, so that we can stay healthy mentally, physically, and be able to breathe and take a second. They produce amazing results. And Robert is a prime example of that.
Or might need 8 more hours too.
Exactly.
We are just about out of time, and I want to thank you so much, Robert. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your story for our viewers?
No, God bless you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Congratulations. Our guest today was Robert Hamilton, and I'm Kathleen Benoit, along with Cheryl Riga and Corby Skinner. This is Living Well in Montana. Thank you for joining us. And if you know someone who is struggling with a disability, can't get a hold of Lyft or have them call Lyft. Have a great day. We'll see you again.